Hi, folks. This is the first of a two-parter on corporate strategy. You may be asking yourself, aren't I in a corporate strategy class? Haven't I been studying corporate strategy all along? Well, yes and no. So, while it's common to use the umbrella term corporate strategy to talk about all matters of business strategy, really, up until this point, we've been talking about just that, business strategy. When people say business strategy or competitive strategy, they're talking about how you compete in a single product market. When we use the term corporate strategy, we're talking about which markets should your business compete in, and how should you organize your business to best compete. The reality is most businesses, even small ones, are diverse. They don't just make one product or service. They do a multitude of different things. So thinking about how that configuration and how those different pieces of the business play together is the realm of corporate strategy. So we're going to focus in a little bit on the second question first, which is how do you organize your business to best compete? You might remember this tool, VRIO, which stands for Valuable, Rare, Imitable, and Organized. And it's a little acronym we use to understand if a resource can help lead to a sustainable competitive advantage. So one of the readings you've been assigned this week comes from Collis and Montgomery, who wrote about competing on resources. They're very focused on the resource-based view of the firm. So not surprisingly, when they start thinking about issues of corporate strategy, like how do we design an organization to best capture value, they focus a lot on the role resources and configurations of resources play in addressing that question. So from the VRIO framework, we're going to focus on this O, that organized question. What does it mean to be organized to capture value? And talk a little bit about its relationship with resources and capabilities. So this is the triangle of corporate strategy that Collis and Montgomery propose. And the relationship between resources and businesses is one they kind of lay out. It's something we've studied when they talked about competing on resources. This bottom part of the triangle asks, how do we organize various parts of the business? Specifically, how do we coordinate amongst them? So how do we share resources and capabilities across different business units? And then how do we control them? So how do we provide the carrots and sticks to make sure they're doing what they should be doing? So this is incentive systems, and this is measurement, are kind of some of the questions that come up with control. And Collis and Montgomery give us this nice chart, of course, focused on, first and foremost, the nature of resources of a business, about how those different mechanisms of coordination and control should work, depending on the nature of resources, right? So a more generalized business with more generalized resources versus more specialized resources, everything kind of follows suit from that in terms of the size of a parent company, the kind of control systems they use, coordination mechanisms, and even just the scope of the businesses that they operate. So what does it mean to have specialized versus general resources? A general resource or capability might be something that's broadly applicable across a variety of different industries. I used to work at General Electric, GE, and they talked about being the CEO factory. They were excellent at financial management and creating general managers. You can take that argument with a grain of salt, but you would consider that a very general capability that could apply to a lot of different industries. And of course, in GE's case, they did. They were a diversified conglomerate. They basically made and did everything under the sun. A more specialized resource or capability is something that might be really specific to a single industry, specialized knowledge, equipment, etc., that really doesn't transfer well. Collis and Montgomery make one more point that's worth emphasizing, which is when they talk about relatedness across industries, they're talking about relatedness in resources, not just in the products. So at the end of the day, two kind of markets may look very different because the products might be very different. But if the underlying resources and capabilities needed to produce them are similar, those industries might be much closer than you think. On the other hand, I think Frank Vermeulen offers an interesting kind of critique of corporate strategy. Colas and Montgomery are very focused on the role of like a head office or a parent office and how they encourage sharing across business units and the different kind of roles they can play and how that can add value to its various businesses. Vermeulen kind of steps back and says, I don't think so. And anyone who's ever worked in a large organization might have had that feeling where you're like, I don't know what those guys up at headquarters are doing or how they're adding value. It's a common sentiment. So Vermeulen's kind of anecdote to this is to say the way a parent company can add value, there's really only three things they can do. They can be a portfolio manager, a board of directors, or an in-house bank. And all of those roles are roles that can be done externally as well. You can have an external portfolio manager, investor. You can have the actual external board of directors for a company, or you can have an actual bank outside of the company to lend them money. Vermeulen's point is that the parent company can sometimes do this better than an outsider because they have better knowledge of an internal business unit.